I'm Evan Knappen.
And I'm Teddy Knappen.
And this is Gun Lawyer. I need to give everyone a warning. Do not engage in maritime salvage from boating accidents until given the all clear.
You might find a few bodies in Jersey.
Well, the reason for this is, of course, we're all extremely excited about the Third Circuit Court of Appeals en banc decision killing and pronouncing dead the New Jersey 36-year-old ban on so-called assault firearms and so-called large capacity magazines. I mean, we've known it's a violation of the Second Amendment ever since the day it passed, but finally getting to this day is wonderful. Just a great day for freedom and liberty and shoving it up New Jersey's butt. It is great. It is great. However, in practical terms, a lot of the key questions that are out there are we good to go? Can we buy these guns? Can we buy these mags? What's the story? What's the deal? Well, I'm going to explain to you where we're at with that. And that's the important thing that I know a lot of you want to know. And at the moment, we got to just let the dust settle here because there's certain formalities and deadlines and procedures that can happen. Yes, we have the win. We have the win. It's a fantastic win. It's a decision of which it was a 10-5. It was brilliant. We absolutely crushed it. And the decision was written by Judge Friedman, who, by the way, the judge who wrote this magnificent decision was a Biden appointee and the first female judge of color. That's right, a woman of color, the first on the appellate court and a Biden appointee who is giving us this fantastic Second Amendment decision, which is restoring freedom and helping to stop oppression of our Second Amendment rights. So, this is important because it's how it should be. Those that believe in rights, whatever you might think off the bat might be their politics, it's everybody's Second Amendment. It's everybody's rights. And if you're going to follow the Constitution and you're going to be a judge that follows the Constitution and not goes for politics, then this is the right thing to do. So I take my hat off to Judge Friedman, and it is a great decision, extraordinarily thorough. And I understand her background was that in being a public defender as well. And I'm sure that she saw what these laws do to good people and how unfair and unbelievably stupid they are. And we now see the results of incredible hard work that's been done over years and got us to this point. So we're all just jumping for joy, and it's really making clear that it's that a so-called assault firearm bans, even across the country, are on their deathbed or are being killed and dying. And even with the U.S. Supreme Court having taken the Ramontes and Grant case, now we're going to get a federal Supreme Court decision that'll come out in June. This New Jersey appeals court decision is, of course, going to, I'm sure, come into play in their decision-making there. And it is a great day for us for sure. However, how does it work now that we have that decision? How will it work in practical terms? And this is where we have some patience is necessary. Some important patience is called for. And that's because you may have heard, and if not, I'm going to mention to you that there was a email that was sent out to dealers from the state police firearms unit, and it went out and it said that essentially July 31st. July 31st, they're going to this will become effective, meaning the court case effective. It was kind of weirdly written with this date, and it seemed to indicate that July 31st everything was going to be free flowing and we were going to be good to go, but it wasn't really. It basically put everyone's thinking, okay, July 31st is some kind of key date, and that's when we're going to know. Why would they even pick that? Like, what is going on? So let me explain that date and what's really happening. And a matter of fact, our good friend John Petrolino at Bearing Arms, he recently had an article that says New Jersey AG backtracks on date of gun and magazine bans demise. And the backtracking is as follows, and this is what's going on. That July 31st date, okay, which Bearing Arms and Petrolino got the word from Davenport's office, it's the Attorney General, that said, where they're saying, we have until July 31st of 2026 to petition the court for a rehearing. And then 7 days later, on August 7th, is when the decision is effective, okay? And so that's where they're coming from. So are they going to petition for a rehearing? Now, just because they petition for a rehearing doesn't mean that a rehearing is going to get granted, and I frankly think it's unlikely that it's going to get granted. Now, in addition to this mix is what's called the mandate. And good friend and colleague who was the lead counsel and fought hard on this very case, Dan Schmutter, a great Second Amendment attorney. Dan was speaking to John and also explained that there's this mandate. And essentially what he said is, quote, the mandate is the actual order, that's the direction to the lower court to implement the ruling. And that mandate, okay, that is basically an August 10th date. So August 10th is going to be a critical date in understanding the practical aspects of when and if these firearms and magazines will again be bought, sold, and possessed in New Jersey. And that's why we're putting advice about not doing any maritime salvage for any boating accidents on recovery until we have an understanding of where we're at here. Now, there may even be a stay granted, a stay of the implementation of the mandate, and that would mean we'd be in a holding pattern until that stay gets lifted. That might, in fact, happen, and then that ride until we get the Supreme Court rendering its decision. They also might in New Jersey try to go for Supreme Court review, what we call certiorari, and that may end up bringing it into or part of or put on hold with the Supreme Court case pending in Viramontes and Grant. So this is all out there in the mix. So the number one takeaway from all this is don't do anything yet. We have all the reason to be extremely happy, to be joyous, to realize that all our hard work is paying off. But at the moment, don't take any steps yet so that you don't end up in a giant GoFu. And doing something now is the GoFu. That's this week's GoFu. This week's GoFu, even though we normally do it at the end of the show, let me just tell you right now, the GoFu is that. Do not do anything different right now. Don't buy and order magazines. Don't possess any of the firearms that may fall under the current ban. You know, you may be seeing things online where people are claiming that they're buying and selling and doing I wouldn't be doing that right now because even though I'm confident in our victory, it still isn't a done deal, right? The old wait till the fat lady sings deal, well, it applies here. There's still the risk. And during that time period, right now, before we have the definitive legal standing, so we can say, you have the green light, we're all good, you're taking a risk that you don't want to take, right? So that is the point of it.
One of the things reading the case, Dad, just kind of going
Yes.
through, they outline like the full breakdown of using Bruin and how they essentially destroy it with the test, the two-part test, where and the Second Amendment plain text covers the individual's conduct and then clicks to the next one. And also then says second must demonstrate the regulations consistent with nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation, and they show the combination with this with Wolford as well, because Wolford goes into the three subsidiaries where applies what is people, all members of political community, and then goes into arms. Arms is the game because that was the whole crux, was the issue of common use. That was the entire thing that the left had been trying, the dangerous and unusual, and it was clearly outlined in the opinion talking about the idea of common use, both with the AR-15s and assault firearms, but with mags as well. Like they even highlight that where I almost read like Scalia, where he used to, if you ever read his opinions, he always joked and made like little snide remarks. It was very funny. But with the 24 million AR-15, is right out of the case, 24 million AR-15s and similar sporting rifles, the classification that can be determined are in common use, lawful purposes, typically common standard, with a 20 to 30 round mag, up to 100 million 30-round mags in the United States and magazines are in circulation. That sets the degree of common use. Like,
And let me tell you why that's so important. Because once common use, you have that, and it actually has a reverse burden from this case. Common use is shown, it's done, it's there. We, as those challenging the laws, that burden isn't on us, and it makes it now so that the state has to demonstrate the Bruin test. So this is very significant because of how it addresses common use. And of course, these semi-automatic firearms and their magazines are it's undisputable. It's indisputable that they're in common use. There's more AR-15s than there are Ford F-150s out there. So this is great, and the gun rights oppressors realize that their days are numbered. Don't you think, Teddy? Don't you think they realize that?
well, not only that, they're putting out newsletters crying about it. I mean, cut to right now, the Trace, literally, right, they just admitted defeat, right from the Trace. New Jersey just lost its assault weapon ban. Here's why that matters to the rest of the country. And outlying, they admit it, of the in Delaware, the challenges in Chicago, all the different ones that are currently in play to take out their assault weapon bans, and they even go into they've been a synonym, the assault weapons and the gun control debate. Oh, really? It shows the outlandishness of the debate, really. But
Well, this is well, they know it, and they're this issue for them that has been such a magnificent fundraising, pearl clutching issue for them is going to be bye-bye. And they're across the board on gun law challenges, they are losing.
The one thing I will say, and I always like reading the dissent, because this is the mindset of the left, of how they, and this, right, pulling right from the dissent on here, where they go into the right, the right secured by our founders is, in the Second Amendment, is not unlimited. They always cite that to Heller, and it has never been understood that the guarantee of a right to keep and bear arms, carry any weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, or for whatever purpose. Instead, the Second Amendment allows states to ban certain types of fire. I don't remember that in the Second Amendment. I don't remember those words.
Well, here's a funny little thought that occurred to me about this. Once the dust settles, and ARs and mags and semi-auto rifles and all the, intrinsically evil guns that the oppressors hate, once they're all good to go in Jersey, the definition of assault firearm, that term, assault firearm, that definition is still found in New Jersey law. It's just that the ban is found to be unconstitutional. The ban, right? The prohibition. But the definition of that term is still in law. That's found under firearm definitions. Okay, it's found there. The ban itself is found in a different section. That's under NJS 2C 58.5 F. Okay, and it's a different section. That's where it's banned. It's made a crime of the second degree to possess any of these guns without a permit to carry an assault firearm, or it having been registered or rendered inoperable. Right there in the statute, you don't have any of those exceptions, then you are a violator. And if you violate it, if you're convicted, you're looking at up to 10 years in state's prison with a minimum mandatory 3.5 years. It's draconian and insane. So the law itself, that is the ban, that's the 39.5 law. That's where the ban is. The definition is in 39.1. However, what's very interesting is New Jersey has under 58.5, that's NJS 2C 58.5, they have the license to carry and possess an assault firearm. Now, that license to carry an assault firearm mandated two things in order to get it. One is that you first have a license permit to carry a handgun. And of course, when that law was put in place, there were less than 600 citizens that even had permits to carry a handgun. Now there's 100,000, whatever, approximately, or more, that have that. So that has already been met. Then the other thing you had to show was that somehow it was in the public interest for you to have this. However, that standard, those standards, even the standard for carry of justifiable need, the standards have been eviscerated by Bruin. You can't have those standards. You can't have those standards on a carry. So what is left in place, my friends, is an assault firearm carry license. Let that sink in, okay? So in other words, not only by the definition that still exists are these guns there as a list, but New Jersey has a carry permit waiting for you to obtain so that you can carry those guns. They can no longer ban them, but they have a license to carry them that you can get. And not only will you be able to get it, you'll be able to get it and have the guns, because you can't ban the guns. So now their carry permit that they put in to somehow work as an impossible to get exemption can now be turned against them and can be used so that we can even get licenses to carry the list of guns that they so radically expanded to the features of the 97 guidelines and anything substantially identical in the list of 67 guns, etc. So their laws are going to come back as they are and bite them in the ass, as it should be. Keep that in mind.
It'll be really funny, Dad, if we somehow could interview Josh Sugarman just to ask him, like, his literally the term that he used is now going to codify as the de facto defense to allow people to have and possess the firearms. Like,
And not just possess, but to be able to
you,
carry, because Jersey has a so-called assault firearm carry license. The definition of assault firearm is one statute, carry license is another. What the decision is invalidating is the ban. And New Jersey now has a vehicle in place already in law to apply to carry them. So there you go. Another little tidbit to consider. And I'll tell you something else, Teddy. I have a really important case to talk about that may even be more significant, if you can believe it, more significant than this entire battle over assault firearms, because this issue may completely wipe out the key foundation of federal gun laws. And I'm going to tell you about it in a moment, because first I want to tell you about our good friends at We Shoot. We Shoot is an indoor range in Lakewood. It's where Teddy and I both shoot, where we get our certifications, where we get our training, where we love to enjoy our range time. Now, We Shoot, as many of you know, is a fantastic pro shop. They're such a great bunch of folks, and they have many different programs, training, and offerings. And one of the things they're offering right now that I want to talk about that I think is really, really great is they're offering New Jersey carry certification, right? The C-CARE. But specifically, they're offering a course for seniors, okay? For seniors. They have a very welcoming, senior-friendly program designed to make the process simple, comfortable, and easy to understand. With We Shoot's extremely experienced instructors, they're able to provide a safe and supportive and a pressure-free environment where you can build your confidence, improve your skills, and gain the knowledge necessary so you can carry responsibly. This course is really a great idea. And it is something that if you are a senior and you are looking to be able to protect yourself, because that is our right. And of course, as a senior, you know, you're not as physically capable as you used to be. And this course has basic firearm safety as a component. There's safe handling and loading, unloading, and storage techniques. They do easy to understand instruction in use of force, how to do holster safety with holsters and how to properly draw. Then you do the live fire qualification. And all this is step-by-step guidance, including through the New Jersey permit application process. So this is a great service that is being offered by We Shoot. If you or anyone you know is a senior and they want to be able to get their permit to carry, here's a great opportunity to be introduced and learn properly, correctly, and get the credentials that you need to do it from We Shoot. Check out WeShootUSA.com, the beautiful website with fantastic photography, and don't miss the We Shoot girls when you go on their website. You'll love it. They are the place. They're right there, conveniently located in central Jersey, conveniently right off the Parkway there. Check it out. And let me also mention my book, New Jersey Gun Law. Make sure you have your copy of New Jersey Gun Law. It is the Bible of Jersey gun law. It's over 500 pages, 120 topics, all question and answer, and it will guide you through the insane matrix of New Jersey gun laws. And It is something that I'm looking forward to seeing be made smaller, being made a smaller volume. That'd be nice as we keep chopping away the gun laws. But New Jersey still has many of these laws to go, and you need to make sure that you don't become a GoFu. So go to evannappin.com, and get your book today. Now, Teddy, there is a really important development taking place in the Fifth Circuit, and it's all because of St. Thomas. That is what we call Justice Thomas, one of the greatest judges on the Supreme Court, of course. And he, interestingly, laid out a challenge. He laid out a challenge in the recent Supreme Court decision in Hemani. In Hemani, what Justice Thomas said was the Commerce Clause does not authorize Congress to regulate or ban possession of any item that has ever been offered for sale or cross state lines. And then Thomas wrote, otherwise, Federal Commerce Authority becomes, quote, a general police power of the sort retained by the states. Now, that is a fascinating gauntlet thrown down by Judge Thomas, and that has now been picked up by the Fifth Circuit. And a great article on this by Duncan Johnson from Ammo Land. The article is Fifth Circuit takes Justice Thomas up on a challenge to federal gun control power. And yes, it does, because what Thomas is doing there is going at the federal power of interstate commerce. Now, let me tell you, folks, there's only certain powers that the federal government has, and all the other powers out there are reserved to the states. So what are the powers of the federal government? Well, there's three primary powers that the federal governments have. And if the laws are not founded within those powers, if the powers aren't there, then there's no jurisdiction for the law that the government has passed. So the key federal powers are the power of taxation. Okay, that's one power. The military power, and the power of interstate commerce. And those are the powers in the Constitution given to the federal government, and all the other powers go to the states. So you see that every federal law has to be based on one of those three powers. Otherwise, there's no jurisdiction for the law. So, originally, way back, the key power that was used by the federal government were two, military and the power of taxation. And you see the power of taxation, that was the first power used to pass a national gun control law. The National Firearms Act of 1934, the NFA, is based on the power of taxation. That's why you get a tax stamp. That's why ATF and all were originally part of Treasury. It's because it's all based on the government's power of taxation. And with the big, beautiful bill, the tax was made zero. So now in the big, beautiful lawsuit, the argument is if you're not collecting a tax, then your jurisdiction for this, your power of taxation, doesn't exist anymore. And therefore, the law is no longer valid because it's no longer a tax, and therefore no jurisdiction. Well, that third power, interstate commerce, that's where you see the greatest amount of federal government abuse and overreach that ever existed. And you can trace that back to the Wickard versus Filburn case, which had to do with a farmer growing his own food during FDR's administration. And the farmer's growing his own food for himself and for his own livestock, didn't sell a grain of it anywhere. And the government said, you can't do that. We regulate what farmers can and can't grow. And the farmer said, hey, man, this is my farm. It's for me. It's not for anyone else. I have a right to do it. And the court said, oh, well, the fact that you grow your own and don't sell it or distribute it affects interstate commerce, affects it. And man, that opened the door, because then anything that affects interstate commerce, anything that has traveled in interstate commerce, broad, this explosion in federal power. And Thomas obviously and correctly sees that this is nuts and wants to pull it back. And now we have a case in the Fifth Circuit, United States versus Squires, again, en banc, full court, where there was a total remand back in which the consideration is now going to be a challenge as to whether interstate commerce, whether that power can affect simply, as in Squire's case, which involved a felon, a convicted felon, a bad guy, someone who, not a nice person, as our president would say, not a nice person. However, the gun that was found in, I think it was Louisiana, the gun that was found at this guy's place was not used in crime, was not used in a murder, was not the element, was not evidence of any offense of that. But he was charged with being a felon in possession of a firearm. And the question is a gun that merely at some point had traveled through interstate commerce but was no longer, in interstate commerce at all, was no longer just in this guy's place sitting in a state in Louisiana. Does the federal government's power of interstate commerce still apply to that so that they can enforce a federal gun law stopping felons from possessing a gun? Or is that an overreach? And this case, my friends, has the potential to remove the very foundation of federal gun laws based on interstate commerce. It is extremely important. Even the dissent recognizes that this is the case. As a matter of fact, the dissent in the Squires case said, the court, quote, has welcomed the possibility of finding that Congress's Commerce Clause authority cannot support 922G. That's the felon in possession prohibition. Such decision, he said, would have massive import for the federal law. That's right. You're damn right it will. You're damn right it will. And that's what they're afraid of. And this is why this Squire case can be absolutely game-changing like no other.
Honestly,
so we will keep a close eye on that.
I would kind of combine that with just from the political landscape where you see, I don't know if you saw the Democrats, Socialists, they put out that stupid manifesto where they were talking about eliminating the Senate, expanding Congress. They appoint the president. You don't elect the president. They appoint and just abolishing
Article. Oh yeah, they're basically
1.
Turning us into a dictatorship, a communist dictatorship, right?
I feel like that would be the ultimate check on their power if we could really, really, truly curtail the Commerce Clause to not allow that much power.
We need to. Yeah, this is all about pulling back the federal government in its overreach, and yet something like national reciprocity, where we're dealing with a constitutional right and actually traveling interstate. Well, now we do have interstate commerce going on. We have crossing state lines. We have something that is so plainly a federal issue that falls under it. Whereas when you start making an inanimate object that at some point just crossed the line and ends up in somebody's home, and they're not traveling with it, they're not moving with it, they're just saying, hey, even though it was purchased or acquired in Louisiana, but at some point it had to get to a dealer, and made it to the. I mean, this is so far down the line of having any connection to it. And as Thomas points out, it basically removes the state police power, which is a power that should be reserved to the state. So this is going to be a fascinating argument to follow. And the threat of communism through the Democrat socialists. I mean, look at what we're looking at today, Teddy. I mean, when was the last time we saw that? Democrat socialists. They want national socialism, and they combine it with Jew hate. Gee,
Well, here's the
remember those?
combination.
Those folks used to walk funny, I think, right? Remember them? That's what they're basically mirroring right now in America.
Well, it goes back to, Dad. You gotta look at the two biggest propagandist industries. You had higher education, which that's, thank God Donald Trump. They've cracked down on that hard. Where now they're no longer be going to give out loans to. So you have to get you can get a bachelor degree in feminist basket weaving, and that'll cut out a lot
Right,
of the
that's a
politically
great
motivated.
move too. You're right.
And number two is Hollywood and entertainment, where they also push the socialist movement. That I think, particularly with AI and other and independent projects, are rising above and breaking the stranglehold of Hollywood to the point now they're trying to fund Jersey, where Netflix is building, and you got Paramount and the others are funding it, trying to turn into the new East Hollywood. But the main thing is McCarthy wasn't wrong. He went overzealous, yes, but just the levels of there were communists in our works of the government, and here is the fruits of their labor.
And, well, not only that, during McCarthy Day, they tried to stay hidden. Now they're open about it. They're open.
They're proud of it. They're
they're proud of it.
About
They're wearing it. They're bragging about it. And this is a complete antithesis to what America is all about. And nowhere ever has communism worked. Look, when that wall came down in Germany, where do you think they wanted to go? Where you don't see people escaping, quote unquote, to communism. It's the reverse. And once you get communism, once you elect it in, you end up having to shoot your way out. So, I don't think the overwhelming majority of Americans are that foolish. But apparently,
here's the problem.
The majority of Democrats are, because statistically, they're apparently in favor of socialism, which is just a euphemistic label for communism.
Here's the issue, though, Dad. It's my generation, the next, where I think the number was like 58% are seen in favor of socialism. That's that generation. So this time period will be fine, but the next generation, that'll be where it's something. This is where we need to do heavy arms of propaganda. And look, the easiest way to dispel this argument: name me one country where socialism works. Tell me that. And then they immediately try to say the Nordic country, and then I say, right. Okay, first of all, here's a deal for you. We'll completely deregulate oil, just like the Nordic countries. Our immigration policy is about around 3%, and reduce the migrant population to about the size of any Nordic country. And then finally, to end it all, make sure people have maintain themselves healthily, and actually watch what they're actually eating, and going into developing healthier habits like a lot of the Nordic countries, and then get back to me on socialism. Other than that, none of that works. We are a heavily diverse nation. We have a lot of unhealthy issues. So when I hear it, it's just BS every single time. There is no, they move the goalposts and say there's never been any true, it hasn't worked yet because it hasn't been the right version.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't want to be part of that experiment. Thank you. Okay. No thanks.
No, thank you.
I'll stick with our founding fathers. I'll stick with the incredible quality of life that capitalism has given us. And there's a reason why so many people want to come here. Okay. There's a really good reason for it. And it ain't communism. That's for sure. Hey,
The other thing,
this is, yeah, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, here's the other one. Name me once did communism ever allow for someone to take a loan to get a business started? Name me one faction of that where someone who came from essentially the small folk being able to rise up and become millionaires and running their own businesses.
Well,
Yeah, exactly.
you maybe recently I just heard President Trump talking about it, and he summed it up pretty well. And he said, communism is shit. That's exactly what the president said. And then he goes, his wife gets upset when he uses that word, and Reverend Falwell even wrote him once and said to him, we'd prefer if he would try not to use profanity. And then Trump said he told him, the problem is that's the word that perfectly describes communism. And so I guess if there's any time to use the word, that's the time to use the word. So there you go. Hey, this is Evan Knappen and Teddy Knappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.